Hi, my name's Sarah, I'm 30, and I think I broke something that might never be fixable. I didn't cheat, I didn't scream, I didn't walk out. But what I did, or didn't do, in one stupid, exhausted moment, that was enough. And now there's a photo I can't delete, a silence I can't fill, and a man who may never look at me the same again. I keep asking myself if I meant it. But the real question is, did it mean something to him? Hey, before we really get into it, maybe grab a drink, get comfortable. This one's not exactly easy for me to tell, and probably won't be easy to hear either. If it pulls something out of you, leave a comment. I'd really love to know, what would you have done in my place? And if you want to hear how it all plays out, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. I'd been in labor for 12 hours by the time the contractions got serious. The kind of serious that makes you forget your own name, let alone how many hours it's been since you last blinked. Ryan was supposed to be there, and technically, he was. Just late. He'd called at 3:42 p.m., stuck in traffic outside Norwood, some pileup on the highway. I'm trying, baby, just hold on. Only I couldn't. My body had other plans. So I called Evan. Not because I wanted to. Not because he had any right to be there. But because he was 5 blocks away, and I couldn't imagine walking into that delivery room alone. He showed up 10 minutes later, hoodie inside out, hair wet like he'd just jumped out of the shower and didn't towel off. He was winded, worried, and exactly what I needed right then. By 6:15, we were in the room. I had an IV, a monitor, an epidural that hadn't kicked in yet, and a death grip on Evan's arm. He stayed calm, oddly calm. Brought ice chips, rubbed my back, said all the right things without sounding like he'd practiced them. Ryan walked in at 9:37, sweat down his collar. Face pale, eyes locked. Not on me, but on Evan sitting beside my bed, holding my hand. Hey, he said, trying to smile. Hey, I whispered. I wanted to sit up, to explain, to do something other than breathe through another wave of pain. But then I turned to Evan and said, pressure, please. He nodded and moved into place, like he belonged there. I didn't notice Ryan's face until later. I didn't notice a lot of things. Not until the moment came. The nurse held our daughter, wrapped in hospital blue and impossibly small. Would you like to hold her? And somehow, maybe because I was tired, maybe because I was grateful, or maybe because I was just stupid, I looked up and said, let him hold her first. He's been here since the beginning. It didn't feel wrong when I said it. But the silence after, that felt like the end of something. Ryan didn't say anything. Not when Evan carefully passed the baby to him. Not when the nurse adjusted the hospital blanket. Not even when I whispered, isn't she perfect? He just nodded, cradling our daughter like she was porcelain and he was afraid to crack. He held her right, his hands steady. But his eyes, they didn't move, didn't look at me, didn't look at Evan. That night, when visiting hours ended, Evan gave me a light squeeze on the shoulder and left. I thanked him. Ryan didn't. The door closed behind Evan with the softest click imaginable, and Ryan stood by the window, staring at something I couldn't see. You okay? I asked. He turned. Should I be? I just meant, you've barely said anything. I'm fine, he said. But his voice came wrapped in barbed wire. We didn't talk much after that. Nurses came and went, forms to sign, latches to fix. Our daughter, we hadn't even named her yet. Ryan kept suggesting names like Harper and Eliza. I kept pretending not to hear. At 3 a.m., I woke to find him still sitting upright in the hospital chair, scrolling through his phone. The blue glow lit his face like a ghost story. Come lie down, I said softly. Just for a bit. I'm good, he replied, still scrolling. He wasn't. Not even close. The next morning, Evan showed up again. I hadn't asked him to, not directly. But I guess he took my silence as permission. He brought bagels and coffee. Kissed me on the forehead. Ryan stiffened. Didn't know we were having company, he muttered. I shot him a look. He just brought food. He always just brings something, doesn't he? Evan handed him a coffee. Ryan didn't take it. Later, a nurse walked in during feeding and said, "Dad, can you help me adjust the pillows?" Ryan stepped forward, but she was looking at Evan. He froze. I froze. Evan gave an awkward laugh. "Oh, no, I'm not the dad. Just a friend." The nurse blinked. "Sorry, you were here yesterday. I just assumed—" "It's fine," Ryan said flatly, taking the baby. But it wasn't. It wasn't fine at all. When the nurse left, he didn't speak. Just sat back in the chair, gently rocking the baby while staring out the window again. I tried to act normal, talked about baby clothes, pediatricians, first baths, but every word landed on the floor between us and stayed there. Ryan finally stood and said, "I'll be back tomorrow." I blinked. "You're leaving?" He didn't answer. Just grabbed his keys, pressed a kiss to the baby's head, and walked out. I stared at the door for 5 whole minutes after it closed. Then I turned to Evan, who was still standing there with the now cold coffee in his hands. "He's just tired," I said. But even I didn't believe myself. Discharge day. The nurse handed me the final paperwork with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just need the other parent to sign here," she said. Ryan wasn't back yet. I texted him, "We're ready. You coming?" No response. I waited 10 minutes, then 20. The nurse offered to call a cab. I told her I had someone else who could pick us up. Evan showed up 20 minutes later, his shirt wrinkled, holding a bouquet he probably picked up from the hospital gift shop. He looked at the baby like she was glass and gold at the same time. "You sure this is okay?" he asked. I nodded, but something in me shifted. As we walked toward the car, I texted Ryan again. "We're leaving now. You missed it." Still nothing. When we got to the apartment, I noticed it immediately. The suitcase was gone. The hall closet door stood slightly open. Empty hangers. No laptop on the charger. The keys he always dropped in the tray by the door? Gone. Evan set the car seat on the coffee table, looking around. "Did he—" I didn't answer. I was already walking into the kitchen. On the counter, a white envelope. My name in his handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there, one hand on the counter, the other still gripping my phone like it might vibrate and cancel all of this. When I finally tore it open, the first line stopped my breath. "I can't do this anymore." He wrote about the photos, about the hospital, about Evan being there for everything. While I was watching from the sidelines like a guest in my own life, he said he needed time, space, clarity. He said he'd be at Mark's, not to contact him. When I looked up, Evan was holding the baby. "She okay?" he asked. "No," I said. "She's perfect, but her father just left." He blinked. "Do you want me to stay?" I almost said yes. I wanted someone there, anyone. But something felt off, like I'd opened a door and couldn't remember why. "Just for a minute," I said quietly. That night, I sat on the couch holding my daughter and staring at the envelope. I kept replaying that moment in the hospital. Let him hold her first. It had felt so small. But maybe it was never about the moment. Maybe it was about who I had become, the version of me that didn't notice when lines blurred or when someone stepped into a role that didn't belong to them. Ryan had stepped out of our life, and I wasn't sure if he was coming back. I didn't open Instagram for 2 days. Not because I forgot, because I knew exactly what I'd see. But on the 3rd night, after another failed text to Ryan, "Can we talk? Please," I gave in. The first thing that popped up was Evan's story. A boomerang of our baby's tiny hand wrapped around his finger. Then a close-up of me, sweaty and pale in the hospital bed, smiling at her. Evan in the corner of the frame, blurred but unmistakably there. Caption: "Moments that matter." My stomach dropped. Another swipe. Him holding her, his lips pressed gently to her forehead. I clicked through the rest with shaking fingers. Soft music. Filters. Hashtags. New life. Honored, you're always here. It looked like we were a family. I messaged him immediately. "Delete those, now." He responded in under a minute. "Why?" "They're beautiful." "Because they're not yours to post." He left it on read. The next morning, I called him. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. So I drove to his place. He opened the door in sweatpants and a confused expression. "What's the big deal?" "You posted pictures of my baby." "Our baby, kind of." My breath caught. "What did you just say?" He backpedaled. "I mean, I was there. You said I'd been there from the beginning. You introduced me to the nurse like I was—" "I didn't mean it like that." "But maybe you did." I stepped back. "You think you're her father now?" He didn't answer. Just shrugged, and that silence was louder than any yes. When I got home, I sat on the floor with Macy. That's what I'd finally named her. Quiet and soft, a name that felt like a breath. She cooed in her sleep. I opened Ryan's contact and typed out a message. I didn't see it. I didn't know how it looked, but I see it now. I deleted it before hitting send. I wasn't ready to admit anything. Instead, I scrolled back through Evan's posts. The ones that were still up. All the likes, all the comments. "You're going to be such a good dad. She's lucky to have you." Heart emojis, clapping hands, fire. But nowhere was Ryan. No one knew the man who built the crib, painted the walls, read every parenting book before I even peed on the stick. Because the only pictures people saw were of the guy who showed up with coffee and a camera. I closed the app and powered off my phone. Some things, once shared, can't be unposted. And some moments, you don't get a second take. Ryan came back to the apartment 3 days later. No warning, no knock. Just the sound of keys in the lock like he still lived there. I was in the kitchen with Macy on my hip. Evan was on the couch, bouncing her gently while scrolling through something on his phone. The moment Ryan stepped in, the air changed. It snapped tight. Evan stood up slowly. "Hey, man." Ryan didn't respond. He looked at me. Not with anger, with something colder. Like I was a stranger borrowing his life. "I just came to grab some documents," he said, already walking past us toward the office. I followed. "Ryan, wait." He stopped in the hallway, back still turned. "For what?" "To talk." He turned then, finally, eyes tired, beard darker than usual. "You want to talk now?" "Yes," I said, quieter. "Please." He exhaled through his nose, leaned against the wall like he needed it to stay upright. "Do you remember the night we found out we were pregnant?" he asked. I nodded. "You cried. You said you weren't ready. I held you for an hour until you calmed down. Do you remember what I said?" "We'll figure it out," I whispered. He nodded. And I meant it. I didn't have the answers, but I was there. I was always there, Sarah. "I know." "No, you don't," he said, voice rising just enough to sting. "You think being there is about big gestures. Evan brought coffee. Evan took pictures. Evan pressed on your back during contractions." He paused. "But I built that crib with hands that hadn't stopped shaking since the day you said we were having a baby." I swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to replace you." "But you did," he said simply. "I gave birth. I was scared. You handed her to him," he interrupted, eyes gleaming. "You looked at me, then looked away. Like I wasn't even in the room. Like he was." I opened my mouth to answer, but he held up a hand. "This isn't about jealousy. This is about trust, and respect, and boundaries you stopped noticing because they didn't matter to you." Silence. Then, "Is she mine?" he asked. My blood turned to ice. "What?" "I want a paternity test." I took a step back, like the words had weight. "You think I slept with him?" I said. He didn't answer. "I didn't," I said firmly. "We were friends. You know that." "I used to think I did." He turned and walked past me, pausing just long enough to glance toward the living room, where Evan was now holding Macy again. "I'll call my lawyer," he said. And then he was gone. And all I could hear was my own breath, and the ghost I had invited into my home, humming to my daughter. The paternity test was scheduled for Thursday. I marked the date in my calendar and immediately regretted it. Seeing it written down made it real, like I'd agreed to put my entire life on trial. Ryan didn't text again. No reminders, no explanations, just silence. Evan, meanwhile, acted like nothing had changed. He came over every day, held Macy, brought takeout, laughed like we were all in some domestic sitcom. Except I couldn't breathe. Late Tuesday night, I sat in the nursery with Macy asleep on my chest. The room smelled like baby lotion and dryer sheets and something sweeter I couldn't place. The smell of innocence, maybe. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to no one, "What if I don't know?" The memory of that night, 10 months ago, came back in pieces. Me and Evan, drinks after work to celebrate his promotion. Too much tequila. The Uber. My apartment. Laughter. Then, fragments. My head on his shoulder. His lips on mine. And then nothing. Blank. In the morning, I told myself we must have just fallen asleep. That nothing happened. But now, faced with a court-ordered test, my own certainty was crumbling. The next day, I called Evan. "You okay?" he asked, sounding distracted. "Can you meet me? Alone?" We met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. Neutral ground. I didn't order anything. Just sat there, fingers curled around my phone like it could protect me. "I need to ask you something," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "That night, after the drinks, did we?" His face went still. Too still. He took a breath. "You were drunk. Really drunk." "I remember kissing you," I said. "But nothing else." He hesitated. "We didn't. Not really. I mean, we kissed. You passed out. I put you on the couch. That's it." "Are you sure?" He nodded, too fast. "You're not lying to protect me?" "No," he said quickly. "Why would I?" But something in his tone felt rehearsed. Something in his eyes didn't match the words. "I just needed to hear it," I said. When I got home, Macy was crying. I held her, rocked her, hummed a lullaby I didn't remember learning. Then I looked down at her face, and for the first time, I wondered if I was rocking a child who didn't belong to the man I married, and if so, what did that make me? 5 days. That's how long it took to get the results. Ryan didn't want to meet at the apartment, said he'd rather keep things neutral. Again. So we met at a park near his brother's place. It was overcast, the kind of gray that flattens everything. He was already on the bench when I arrived, envelope in hand. I didn't speak, just sat down beside him. Macy was asleep in her carrier, bundled in too many layers, like I thought wool could shield us from whatever was coming. Ryan didn't look at me. "I got the results this morning," he said quietly. "And?" He handed me the envelope. My fingers didn't want to work. I fumbled the flap, unfolded the page like it might bite me. My eyes scanned for numbers, names, until I found it. The alleged father, Ryan Miller, is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. My stomach dropped out. "No," I whispered. I read it again, then a third time, but the words didn't change. "No, that's not right. That can't be right." "I had them run it twice," Ryan said. "Same result." I looked up at him. "Ryan, I didn't know. I swear to you, I thought—" "You were sure," he said flatly. "You were so sure." I reached for his hand, but he stood up, just out of reach. "I didn't lie to you," I said. He didn't yell, didn't curse, just stared at me with this broken, measured kind of stillness. "You didn't know, Sarah, and you let me believe. You let me dream her into existence." "I didn't mean to—" "But you did," he cut in. "You meant to trust someone else with your body, your choices. You meant to put me last." He looked down at the baby. "She's beautiful," he said. "She really is." "She's yours in every way that matters," I said, the words tumbling out like I could rebuild something with them. "She's not," he replied. "And that's the one truth I can't unknow." "What happens now?" I asked, barely breathing. He stared at the ground for a moment, then said, "Now, you call Evan and tell him he's a father." Then he turned and walked away. No look back, no hesitation. I sat there, the paper shaking in my hand, my daughter asleep at my side, and a hollow where my marriage used to be. I called Evan from the park bench. He answered on the third ring, voice casual. "Hey, everything okay?" I didn't speak right away. When I did, it came out flat. She's not Ryan's. Silence. Then, wait, what? The test. It came back today. He's not the father. Another pause. I could hear the hum of traffic on his end, the distant slam of a car door. So, are you saying? I'm saying? I cut in. You're her biological father. He didn't say anything. Evan? I need to process that, he said finally. Can I call you back? But he didn't call back. Not that day. Not the next. When I finally reached him 3 days later, his tone had changed. Cold. Careful. I've been thinking, he said. This wasn't part of my plan. She exists, I snapped. That's not a plan. That's a fact. I know, he said quickly. I'm not saying I won't do something. I'll help. Financially. Financially, I repeated, like the word tasted bitter. I'm not ready to be a father, Sarah. You were ready to take over my hospital room. That was different, he muttered. That wasn't real. I was being supportive. No, I cut in. You were playing supportive. You liked the role. You liked the way people looked at you. You liked me looking at you like that. He didn't respond. I pushed on. You held her before her real father did. You posted pictures. You smiled like she was yours. I thought she wasn't, he snapped. But now that she is, it's different. Yeah, I said. Now it's real. And you don't want the wait. I just need time. You had time. He went silent again. And in that silence, something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Just, finally. Later that night, I sat in Macy's room and stared at the mobile above her crib. Soft animals spinning in lazy, meaningless loops. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. We can work something out. Let's talk next week? I deleted it. No response. No negotiation. Just gone. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes were wide open, staring up at me. You deserve better, I whispered. And maybe, for the first time, I meant myself too. Evan showed up 2 weeks later, uninvited. I was on the balcony, bottle-feeding Macy while she kicked at the blanket like it was trying to hold her back. The sun was low, casting everything in that soft gold that makes even broken things look beautiful. He knocked once and let himself in like he still had a key, which he did. I'd forgotten to ask for it back. I thought we should talk, he said, standing awkwardly in the living room. I didn't get up. About what? He hesitated. About what we do now. We? I echoed. He nodded. I've been thinking. I know I reacted badly, but I want to be involved. I want to do what's right. I waited. I talked to a lawyer, he said, like that would earn him credit. They said I could petition for visitation. You want to file paperwork to see her? I just want a path, he said. I'm not asking for custody, not yet. You want applause for thinking about being a father? I said. Because I already have one man who left. I don't need another who's halfway out the door before he even knocks. Evan looked stunned. Sarah, I was there for you. No, I snapped. You were there for the spotlight, the comments, the stories, the nurse who called you dad. You liked that. You liked being the good guy in someone else's life. But when it got real, you disappeared. He stepped closer, defensive now. I didn't ask for this. She didn't either, I said, nodding toward Macy. But she's here. He looked down, hands in his pockets. I thought we were friends. We were, I said. And you ruined that. Because friends don't slide into cracks in someone's marriage and act surprised when the foundation gives out. Silence. Then he said it. The final nail. I don't think I'm ready to be a dad. I stared at him. You were ready to hold her in the delivery room. Ready to post her to the world. Ready to feel like she was yours. But now that she actually is, you're not ready. He shrugged helplessly. I can still send money. I don't want your money, I said. I want you gone. He stood there for a long time, maybe waiting for me to soften. I didn't. Finally, he nodded. I'll leave the key. He set it on the counter, looked at Macy one last time, and walked out. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just breathed. Deep, quiet, and for the first time in months, alone without being abandoned. 3 months passed. The house was quieter now, not just from the absence of Evan's voice or Ryan's footsteps, but from something deeper, a stillness that no longer felt like punishment. Macy was 6 months old, teething, trying to sit up, laughing at shadows and ceiling fans like they were the best thing life had to offer. I hadn't heard from Ryan since the final papers were signed, until today. A text, simple, polite. Would it be okay if I saw her? No legal threats, no demands, just a question. I stared at the screen for a full minute before typing back. We're at the park by 8th and Leland, if you want. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was space. We were already sitting on a blanket when he arrived. He looked older, not tired exactly, just recalibrated, like he'd rebuilt something inside himself. Hi, he said. I nodded. Hi. He sat down slowly. She's gotten big. She never stops moving. Macy squirmed in my lap, then reached toward him with a squeak that might have been a laugh. Ryan hesitated for half a second. Then he reached out, and she melted into his arms like nothing had ever broken. I watched them for a while. He didn't cry, didn't lecture, didn't flinch when she tugged his shirt. I gave her a name, I said. He looked up. Macy. He smiled. It suits her. She likes books, I added. And when I hummed the theme from The Office, that got a laugh, a real one. She's everything I never expected, I said. Ryan looked at me. And are you okay? I'm not sure what that means anymore, I replied, but I'm better than I was. We sat in silence, the kind that doesn't press for answers. Then he said, I don't know what I am in her life. I don't want to confuse her. You don't have to be anything, I said. But if you want to be someone, there's room. He looked at Macy, then back at me. I don't know where this ends, he admitted. It doesn't have to end, I said. It just has to begin again, in whatever way it can. Macy giggled at a leaf blowing across the blanket. Ryan smiled. And in that moment, 3 people under gray sky, no titles, no contracts, no guarantees. It felt like enough. For now.